The first sign that humanity was not what the galaxy believed came during a routine border inspection at the Lyran Expanse, where 3 human cargo vessels drifted into restricted space without escort, without weapon signatures, and without any attempt to mask their origin, which itself was strange because every known species either feared or flaunted detection, but humans did neither. They simply arrived as if the laws of the galaxy were optional rather than absolute, and the Lyran Patrol. Captain, a crystalline being of the second caste, ordered immediate interception, expecting an easy prize, expecting frightened traders begging for passage, expecting the usual submission every lesser species displayed when faced with Lyran authority. But when the boarding drones breached the first human vessel, they found it empty except for crates labeled only with coordinates and timestamps. No crew, no life signs, no defensive systems, only a repeating audio message playing on loop that said, "Delivery complete, confirm receipt," which confused Lyran Command long enough for the second and third human vessels to dock themselves directly onto the station hull without permission, and then everything went dark, not explosively, not violently, but as if the station itself had simply decided to stop functioning. And when emergency power returned 12 minutes later, every Lyran officer was alive, but relocated to their escape pods, and their entire command station had been gently detached from its orbit and repositioned near a barren moon marked on human charts as reserved storage. And that was the first incident recorded in what later became known as the human relocation events. But at the time, the galaxy dismissed it as a malfunction until the Ketheri Dominion entered the picture. The Ketheri being one of the oldest militarized civilizations, known for erasing 3 species per century as a form of cultural maintenance. And when they declared human space a minor acquisition target, they expected no resistance because humanity had already signed non-aggression treaties with 5 other empires, which in galactic politics meant surrender disguised as diplomacy. So when the Ketheri armada of 9,000 warships entered the soul boundary, they broadcast a single message demanding planetary compliance, and Earth responded with silence for exactly 47 seconds, before transmitting a star map with one blinking coordinate labeled meeting point, which the Ketheri interpreted as surrender negotiations, and arrived in full formation above Mars' orbit, expecting ceremony, tribute, and obedience. Instead, they found a human fleet numbering only 12 ships, small, dull, almost industrial in appearance, floating in a loose formation that looked more like debris than military structure. And the Ketheri admiral laughed openly across all channels, broadcasting ridicule across multiple frequencies, calling humanity a pre-space curiosity. But the human commander responded with a simple question, asking if the Ketheri understood gravitational resonance theory, which they did not consider important enough to respond to, until one of their outer dreadnoughts suddenly began rotating on its axis without thrust, slowly at first, then violently, as if an unseen hand had grabbed the entire vessel and twisted it like a toy, and within minutes, 6 more warships experienced the same phenomenon, their structural integrity collapsing inward, not from weapons fire, but from localized gravity inversion, and panic spread through the Ketheri fleet as they realized something impossible was occurring because no known technology could manipulate mass fields at that precision. But humanity had not built the system they were using. They had found it, buried beneath Europa's ice, a lattice of unknown origin that responded to human neural patterns alone. And when connected to human-designed computational arrays, it allowed the projection of gravitational control over planetary-scale objects. Though early experiments had been strictly defensive until the Mars incident, when a Ketheri probe strike killed 8,000 civilians in under 5 seconds, and Earth stopped pretending to be harmless, and now above Mars' orbit, the human commander activated what they called Anchor Protocol, and the entire Ketheri fleet felt space itself tighten, as if reality had become dense, and movement became resistance, and resistance became impossible, and ships began colliding not because of navigation errors, but because inertia had changed, because direction itself had become negotiable. And within 20 minutes, the Ketheri armada ceased to exist as a coordinated force, not destroyed, but scattered across 3 solar systems in positions that made no tactical sense, drifting helplessly into gravitational wells they could not counteract, and the galaxy, watching through delayed observation relays, began to understand that humanity did not fight wars in the conventional sense. They edited physics until opposition became irrelevant. But what frightened the observers even more was what happened next, because instead of advancing or conquering, the human fleet simply deactivated most systems and transmitted a galaxy-wide open broadcast containing only one sentence: "We do not expand, we correct," which triggered immediate panic among strategic councils across 7 empires, because correction implied authority, and authority implied judgment. And judgment implied humanity had already decided what the galaxy should be. But the truth was more complicated, as humanity had not intended to become a power at all. The Europa lattice had originally been studied as a curiosity, a relic, a puzzle, until it responded during a catastrophic asteroid deflection failure that would have ended Earth's Atlantic hemisphere, and the system activated instinctively through human operators, redirecting the asteroid not by force, but by rewriting trajectory probabilities in local space-time. And after that day, every government understood the same terrifying reality, that Earth was no longer bound by the same limitations as the rest of the galaxy. But humanity, unlike every empire before it, did not immediately use this advantage for expansion. Instead, they built containment doctrines, limits, and ethical constraints, because every simulation showed the same outcome. If they did not, extinction of all competing civilizations within 27 years, not through malice, but through escalation, because no species would tolerate a neighbor capable of rewriting gravity. And so humanity chose silence, until the Ketheri broke it. And now, as the remnants of the Ketheri fleet drifted powerless across interstellar space, a young alien analyst from the Neutral Archivist Order accessed restricted human military logs and discovered something even more disturbing. The gravitational lattice was not stable technology, it was a communication system, and its signals were not random. They were responses, as if something beneath the fabric of reality was answering humanity. Back, and the final recorded transmission in the human archive before classification read: signal correlation increasing, external source acknowledging human usage, origin point unknown, classification pending. And suddenly the galaxy realized that humanity had not found a weapon. They had answered a call, and whatever had sent the Europa lattice was still listening and still waiting. And as the last line of Ketheri resistance collapsed in a silent, drifting wreckage, one final encrypted human broadcast was sent into deep space, containing only a warning meant for no empire in particular, but for everything watching beyond the stars. We learned to bend gravity. Now something is learning us. And in that moment, every civilization simultaneously understood the same conclusion. Humanity was not the apex species, not the final authority, not even the greatest threat. They were simply the first to respond. Title suggestion: humanity didn't build the weapon. It answered them.